All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, and of the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. There is no such thing as the state, and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out whenever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of eros and dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame.
Delighted to introduce that today's story is going to be shared by our music director, Gretchen Decker. So at this time, I would like to invite all of the kids of any age who feel comfortable doing so to come up here and sit on the floor for the story. Join us up here if you would like.
Mrs. Decker is going to get her reading glasses.
And Mrs. Decker needs her reading glasses. No shame.
No shame. You can sit on the rug. Good morning. Thanks for coming up to join me. I am really excited that I have a chance to share this book with you. This is one of my favorite books, and everyone in my family has a copy of this book. And I still read it to myself, and we still read it out loud on special days in my family. It's called, What Do You Do with a Chance? What do you do with a chance? Well, one day I got a chance. It just seemed to show up. It acted like it knew me, and as if it wanted something. I didn't know why it was here. What do you do with a chance? I wondered. It fluttered around me. It brushed up against me. It circled me, as if it wanted me to grab it. I started to reach out for it, but I was unsure and pulled back, and so it flew away. I thought about it a lot. I wished I had taken my chance. I realized that I had wanted it, but I still didn't know if I had the courage. When another chance came around, I wasn't so sure, but I decided to try. I went to reach for it, but I missed, and I fell. I was embarrassed. It felt foolish, and it seemed like everyone was looking at me, so I decided I never wanted to feel this way again. So, after that, whenever a chance came along, I ignored it. And the more I ignored them, the less they came around. Until one day I noticed that I hadn't seen a chance in quite a while. It was as if they had all disappeared. I started to worry. What if I don't get another chance? I know, I acted like I didn't care, but the truth was that I did. I still wanted to take a chance, but I was afraid. And I wasn't sure if I would ever be brave enough. Then I thought, maybe I don't have to be brave all the time. Maybe I just need to be brave for a little while at the right time. I realized it was up to me. I promised myself that if I ever got another chance, I wasn't going to hold back. If I got another chance, I was going to be ready. Then, one seemingly ordinary day, I saw something shining far off in the distance. Is it possible? I hoped. Could this be my chance? I had to find out. I ran as hard and as fast as I could toward it. I don't know how to explain it, but the second I let go of my fear, I was full of excitement. It wasn't that I was no longer afraid, but now my excitement was bigger than my fear. As I got closer, I could see that this was a really huge chance. But this time I was ready. As it came by, I reached out and I grabbed it and I held on with all my might. She got it. She took a chance. It felt so good to soar, to fly, to be free. And I now see that when I hold back, I miss out. And I don't want to miss out. There's just so much I want to see and do and discover. So I would like to encourage all of you, when your chance comes, take it. Take a chance on being a friend. Take a chance on being part of a community. Take a chance on those violin lessons. Take a chance. You just never know. The comments of the children were that they have books too. And my book is What Would You Do with a Chance? But we have someone who has a book that says, What would you do with an idea? And he has a book who says, Don't worry. Don't worry, bird.
Don't worry, Murray.
Don't worry, Murray. Thank you for the clarification. So as we sing the children out, let's say, take a chance. As you go, may joy surround you. Take a chance, take a chance. Know our love is with you always. Take a chance, take a chance. As you go, may joy surround you. Take a chance, take a chance. Know our love is with you always. Take a chance, take a chance.
The last ghostly patch of snow slips away. With it, the winter's peaceful abandon melts into a memory, and you remember the mire of muck just outside the kitchen window is the garden you've struggled and promised to keep. Jeans dyed black by years of dirt, you step into the ache of your boots again, clear dead spoils, trowel the earth for new life. The sun shifts on the horizon, lights up the dude's spider webs like chandeliers. Clouds begin sailing in, cargoed with rain, loud enough to rouse the flowers into a race of color. The rouged tulip lips clash with the noble lilies, flaunting their petals at the brazen puffs of alum. The mauve tongues of the iris gossip sweet nothings into the wind, trembling frail petunias. Mornings over coffee, news of the world, you catch the magic act of hummingbirds, appearing, disappearing, the eye tricked into seeing how the garden flowers thrive in shared soil, drink from the same rainfall, governed by the same sun, yet grow divided in their beds when they're laid for the year. In the ruts between bands of color, ragweed poke their dastard heads, dandelions cough their poison seeds, and thistles like daggers grow their spiny leaves and take hold. The garden loses ground, calls you to duty again, with worn gloves molded by the toll of your toil, and armed with shears you tear into the weeds, snip head-bowed blossoms, prop their struggling stems, butterfly wings wink at you, hinting it's all a ruse, as you rest on your deck, proud of your calloused palms and pained knees, trusting all you've done is true enough to keep the garden abloom. But overnight, a vine you've never battled creeps into the dark furrows, scales the long necks of the sunflowers, chokes the black-eyed Susan, and coils around the peonies, beheading them all. You snap apart its greedy tendrils, cast your hands back into the dirt, pull at the ruthless roots. Still it returns with equal fury and claim. The red poppies scream. The blue asters gasp for air, strangled in its vile clasp that lives by killing everything it touches. The sun's eye closes behind the mountains, but you lose sleep tonight, uncertain if the garden is meant to inevitably survive or die, or if it matters, one way or the other, with or without you. Maybe it's not just the garden you worry about, but something we call hope, pitted against despair, something we can only speak of by speaking to ourselves about flowers, weeds and hummingbirds, spiders and vines, and a garden tended under a constitution of stars we must believe in, splayed across the sky.
Thank you, Steve. But overnight, a vine you've never battled creeps out of the dark furrows, scales the long necks of the sunflowers, chokes every black-eyed Susan, and coils around the peonies, beheading them all. You snap apart its greedy tendrils, cast your hands back into the dirt, pull at its ruthless roots. Still it returns with equal fury and claim. The red poppies scream, the blue asters gasp for air, strangled in its vile clasp that lives by killing everything it touches. A few weeks ago, I spoke about democracy and small d democratic ideals in order to draw our attention to the value of civic engagement, the importance of giving our attention to the processes of our governmental functions on every level of our society. Today, I need to talk about the weight that rests on our hearts when we try to take an honest look at the state of our democracy. It's best, in fact, if I start talking about the weight that rests on my own heart, for it's unfair of me to project my own experience, reactions, or deep emotions onto anyone else. So right now, I'm going to tell you a personal story, and to preface that story, I need to tell you two things. One, I need to let you know that this story involves a death by suicide, and I want you to know that going in so that you can prepare yourself or choose not to listen for the next few minutes. I fully support you making the choice you need to make for your own mental health. I'll remind us all that if you or know someone or if you are struggling with thoughts of suicide, 988 is now the new shorter number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Two, I will break one of the primary rules I was taught about preaching, which is not to talk about my process. I think in this particular instance, it's important to share with you that I have been cared for, helped, and come to terms with the story that I'm about to tell you. I have been fortunate to have resources, therapy, supportive friends and peers, a loving faith community that allow me to speak to you today about this in a way that's healthy for me. One of the rules of preaching that I am not breaking is preach from scars, not wounds. Today I want to tell you a story about my friend Abby. Abby was kind, fiercely loyal, passionate about fighting injustice wherever she saw it. She loved deeply, but privately. Having survived an abusive marriage, she cherished the safety she found in privacy in many aspects of her life. Abby supported me by coming to some of the first sermons I ever gave as a lay leader in my home congregation, though she'd never otherwise darken the door of a church. Abby is the one who convinced me, by modeling the behavior, to become a clinic escort. Abby and I supported each other as we began attending Black Lives Matter demonstrations in 2015, two white women beginning a journey of learning and unlearning that became a deep part of both of our lives. Her stances on some issues, principally the movement for Black lives, estranged her from most of her family. She seemed to take it in stride, feeling it was the only way for her to continue to live her values. In November of 2016, I was excited to vote. I thought very specifically of my grandmothers that morning, the ones born in the United States at a time when women couldn't vote. In the morning, I went to my polling place, I cast my ballot, I got my sticker, and I went to work. That evening, I had fortuitously made plans to go see punk rock icon and writer and performer Henry Rollins do a spoken word show with a few friends. It seemed like a good way to spend my evening rather than glued to an electronic device. We had a great time, had a great show, said our goodbyes, and headed home. I didn't have to go to work the rest of the week. I'd taken the days off because I was moving. My main job that Wednesday morning was to pack up my kitchen for the movers arriving the next day. When I woke up that Wednesday, I was surrounded by news I will confess here personally, I was not happy to hear. I was very grateful to have a task to distract me. I set about the work of packing my kitchen into boxes when my phone rang. I answered the phone to a woman's voice I didn't know, quietly asking if she had reached me. This woman introduced herself as Abby's sister-in-law and told me that Abby had died by suicide in the early hours of that morning. I started crying, and she started crying, and there wasn't much else to say except please let me know if the family needed anything, and please keep me informed as when the funeral would be planned. She said that she would, that Abby had left a list of people to contact, and that we would all be let know the plans when they were made. In that instance, I knew a different kind of sorrow and world-shattering feeling than the one that I had woken up to. I had no idea what to do. I reached out to our mutual friend. She had actually introduced Abby and myself a few years prior. She had also been on the list, and we spoke of our shock and sorrow with each other. I texted with one of my best friends. I told my roommate, but mostly I sat in tearful silence, not packing my kitchen, unable to do anything else. After an hour or two, I stirred. I couldn't postpone the movers, so I couldn't postpone the packing anymore. As months passed, I started to hear from more and more people about the emotions that they had felt on the morning after that election. They ranged the full spectrum, anywhere from disappointment to happiness to anger to confusion to excitement to uncertainty and more besides. And I'd take my grief out then and re-examine it. That day for me was about much more than the election. Though that was certainly a factor in Abby's decision, it was far, far from the only one. But for me, my anger and sorrow was much more deeply personal than it was for many. There was a greedy and ruthless vine in the garden of my life, and I felt the echoes of this in the larger society. No matter what anyone's personal experience was on that day, there was an overarching shift in the national consciousness that people carried deep in their hearts, even when they hid it from their faces. What do we do with this vine? This grief that threatens every part of the garden, that's also compounded within each of us by the personal grief of our own hearts. I'm going to return our attention again to Richard Blanco's powerful poem that Steve shared with us. The sun's eye closes behind the mountains, but you lose sleep tonight, uncertain if the garden is meant to inevitably survive or die, or if it matters, one way or the other, with or without you. Maybe it's not just the garden you worry about, but something we call hope pitted against despair. Something we can only speak of by speaking to ourselves about flowers, weeds, and hummingbirds, spiders, vines, and a garden tended under a constitution of stars we must believe in, splayed across our sky. And that's what I really want to speak about, hope pitted against despair. I felt I could not speak about it without acknowledging that there are times when despair is the stronger. We have all carried sorrows and struggles that no one knows about, and they color the way that we perceive everything else in the world around us. We are each battling more than one vine. I want to invite everyone hearing these words to take a few steady breaths now. When we put our attention on despair deliberately, it can feel heartbreaking. Despair is a part of life. Without despair, hope cannot fill us up in the same way. Every time we cry out in lamentation, we make room for the next cry of jubilation, which will feel all the sweeter. This constitution of stars we must believe in, that Blanco gently points us towards after the hard work of tending our gardens, asks that we look at the tools in our hands and the dirt beneath our feet and know this work will be of benefit. Even in the darkness, when we don't know and worry that we might never, this work will be of benefit. Staying under that night sky, that gentle scatter of stars, I would also like to turn our attention to our chalice lighting. There was not room for 2 full readings, or I would have had Steve read the whole thing. I'm sure you're glad I didn't. Poet W.H. Auden wrote September 1st, 1939, shortly after hearing about Germany's invasion of Poland on that date, the beginning of the Second World War. It was first published in October of that year. Auden famously came to despise the poem as he first wrote it, widely regarded as one of the greatest written in the 20th century. Because the truth of art is that once an artist has released their creation into the world, it cannot be called back. And the most powerful creations take up their own place, no matter their creator's intent or desire. For our chalice lighting, we heard the final 2 stanzas. All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, and the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. There is no such thing as the state, and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of eros and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. Those flashes of light, those affirming flames sent up by even those struggling with despair, Auden and Blanco are drawing our attention to the same sky, the sky that covers us all, the sky beneath which grow hope and despair beyond measure. This is our garden, beloveds, and this is our work. No matter what happens on Tuesday, on Election Day, we know two things. We know the work will not be over. We know that both hope and despair will live and grow in the hearts of people all over this nation. Please take exquisite care of yourselves in the coming days. Take to heart the reminder that not a single one of us can truly know the mind or heart of another. Take tender care with all those you meet in the coming days. You cannot know what part of the garden they have tended, nor whether hope or despair is the one they currently feel blooming in their hearts. If you find yourself in darkness, remind yourself of the beauty of darkness. Beneath the moon and stars, we take rest, we take shelter, and we take comfort. The moon will be full this Tuesday, and its light will wash the land with a glow that reminds us that no single color, neither red nor blue, is the entire truth of any object. We must love one another or die. Auden struggled with that line particularly. After all, as mortal creatures, we will each die. But the creation remains despite its creator, and that line reminds me that there are many kinds of death. A life lived without loving one another is not the kind of life I want, nor do I believe it's the life that nearly any human would want. So tend the garden within your heart as well as you tend the garden of your family, your community, your world. When there are vines that would strangle your hope, separate you from the knowledge of your worth, know that love means there are more people who can help. If you are struggling, please don't struggle alone. Spark out and see our affirming flames. May it be so.
Where is our holy church? Where is and class unite as equal persons in the search for beauty, truth, and right? people rise in every land to break the captive's bond. Where is our holy land? Within the human soul, wherever free minds truly seek with character the goal. Where is our paradise? In aspiration's sight, wherein we hope to see arise 10,000 years of rhyme.
Please join us in extinguishing our chalice, or your home chalices if you have lit them, with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Everyone born a place at the table, for everyone born clean water and bread, a shelter, a space, a safe place for growing, for everyone born a star overhead, and all will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, all will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Justice and joy.
Justice and joy. I know we dwelt in a space that wasn't always joyful today, and I thank you for taking that journey with me. I hope you take the affirming flame of this faith community with you into the world this week, this world that needs all our faith, all our hope, and all our love. So may it be.